Hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me into your living room today to tell you a story called Little Burnt All Over. I thank the Native American culture for providing this story to us, and it's been in U.S. literature since about 1917 in various iterations. Long ago, before the Europeans ever came to the North American continent, there lived a family of 3 on Lake Otsego together with the rest of the Lake tribe. The father was young, strong, and he was a good provider and protector of the family. The mother was also strong and graceful and wise beyond her years. She was also an excellent teacher, which was important because Little was an excellent student. By the time she was 12 years old, their daughter Little knew everything she needed to know to run the entire household. She could make clothing, like moccasins and other things. She could make fishing nets and go out to the lake and catch fish and bring them home and cook them up. She could cook things her father brought back. She was just a tremendous help for the household. She and her mom would go up to the ridge in the evenings after a long day of work, and they'd watch the western horizon and the sun go down over the western horizon. And then they would enjoy the spectacular sunsets that came up. And the mother would explain to her that that was the Great Spirit. The Great Spirit that provided everything that they had in the world. Later, the sky would begin to darken. As if it were a purple royal cloak, it would come over them. And they would look up and they would see the beautiful stars. And the stars were like wampum on the cloak. Just gorgeous. And it would come around and just encircle the shoulders of the Great Spirit. And Little would ask her mom, "Mom, am I ever going to have a beautiful royal cloak like that?" And Mom told her, "Yes, Little, you will have a cloak like that when your spirit is great." Life truly was good. A few weeks later, Mom and Little went up to the ridge again to watch the sunset. But this time, Mom was a little more serious. And she said that she was telling Little that she had been foretold the future. And that soon she was going to leave Little and her father alone to fend for themselves. And when she did, Little was going to suffer many, many sorrows, more sorrows than any other woman in the tribe had ever had to deal with. But she told Little, "You have to suffer those sorrows with patience and fortitude. For if you become angry and resentful, you will never pass through those sorrows. Rebellion will make them continue on and on. But passing through those sorrows with patience and fortitude, it will be like the wampum in the sky and on the great cloak, the royal cloak." Sure enough, a couple of weeks later, Little's mom was out on the lake and a great wind came up and overtook her, and she drowned, never to be seen again. So there it was. Little and her father were all alone, just as her mother had predicted. And Little did a great job taking care of the household. She knew what to do. But the father, he was still young, and he wanted to marry again. And he chose a woman whose husband had died, and she had 2 daughters, a little bit older than Little. So he married them, and now the household was 5. The 2 stepdaughters were a little bit older than Little, but they were not as smart as her by any means, and they were far more lazy than her. They didn't know how to run a household, and the mother wasn't all that great at it either. So they started ordering Little around. "Do this for me, do that for me." She could do it, so they just ordered her around. And since they were older, Little had to do what they asked her to do. And they were pretty mean to her, and the father really didn't understand that. He was gone much of the time, hunting or off to battle or something like that. So he didn't notice, and when he came back, they behaved themselves and they didn't treat her badly. One time he went off to battle and he never returned. So now Little was there in the household with her stepmom and her 2 stepsisters, who became very, very mean to her. They were ordering her what to do, and when she was too slow or was too busy, they would hit her with sticks. And then sometimes they would even take sticks out of the fire, and they would hit her with those, and it would burn her arms and her legs, and she would scream. It hurt so badly. And the other people from the tribe would say, "Why is Little burnt all over? What is going on?" And the stepmother would just say, "Oh, well, Little, she's so clumsy. She just falls in the fire all the time." Of course, that wasn't true. But from that day forward, they called Little burnt all over. This went on and on and on for years, and Little would sometimes go up to the ridge to watch the sun come down over the western horizon, and she would become refreshed, remembering what her mother had told her, and she would deal with this suffering that she had with patience and fortitude, knowing that she would get through those things eventually. For 4 long years this continued. And Little became a beautiful young lady. Her sisters, who were resentful, got uglier and uglier, and the mom was hideous. But Little was beautiful and of marriageable age. A rumor started circulating around the tribe that the great king of the Snow Peaks was going to come down and look for a wife. Everybody was excited, and the next day a lodge appeared on the other side of the lake, a beautiful lodge. They knew it had to be the king of the Snow Peaks, the greatest of all chiefs. So the stepmother got the oldest stepsister and ordered Little to give her the finest garments that they had, and they dressed her all up as best they could, made her up, put decorations in her hair, and sent her over to the lodge. She went to the lodge, and there was not the king, but an old lady. So the older stepsister said, "Is this the lodge of the king of the Snow Peaks?" And the old lady said, "Yes, it is, but he is not here right now. He is hunting, but he should be on his way home. In fact, he should be on the south trail. Go and find him. The first to see him shall be his bride." So she left, went to the south trail, and there came a man on a horse. And he had a bow in his hand, and an eagle feather, and he had tethered to his wrists a couple of hunting dogs. Excitedly, the oldest stepsister ran back to the lodge. "I have seen the king," she told the old lady. The old lady said, "Really? Well, describe him to me, please." And she did. She said what she'd seen. And the old lady said, No, that's not him. Go away from here." So, dejected, the older stepsister goes back to her home and is crying in front of her mom. I failed. Well, the younger stepsister said, now it's my chance. And she took all the nice clothes and got all dressed up and went to the lodge herself. There again was the old lady. "May I see the king?" the youngest stepsister said to the old lady. The old lady said, "He is not here, but he should be coming shortly on the south trail. Go, find him. The first to see him shall be his bride." So off she went. Now, she saw a man as well on a horse, a beautiful horse. And this was a man, and he had 3 eagle feathers, and he had a bow in one hand and a spear on his back, and 2 wolves were tethered to his wrist, and he was walking down the trail. So she ran back to the lodge, and she told the old woman what she had seen. And the old woman said, "No, that is not him. Go away from here." Pretty gruff. Well, now Little burnt all over. She wasn't going to let this opportunity pass, but she had no nice clothing. The best she could do was clean up, wash up, comb her beautiful black hair, and then she made a wreath of flowers and she put it on her head. And she walked over to the lodge and she spoke to the old woman respectfully. "Is this the lodge of the king of the Snow Peaks?" And the older woman said, "Yes, it is, but he is not here. He is on the south trail. Go, find him. The first to see him shall be his bride." So off Little burnt all over goes. And she was standing there a moment, and then suddenly he appeared on a shimmering stallion, a magnificent man coming down the path. He had not a bow in his hand, but a lightning bolt. And he had on a headdress that was incredible, and it looked like colored halos circulating his head. And the two dogs behind him, they were white, pure white, larger than wolves, but not having two eyes, having only one eye in the center of their forehead. And they were tethered to him by a beam of light. She was astonished and ran back to the lodge. And she says, I think I've seen your son, the king. And the old lady said, describe him to me. And so she did. And as she did, the old lady's face softened. And she smiled and she said, little burnt all over, you have seen the true king. You shall be his wife. And at that, their hide flew open in front, exposing the door. And here was the king, standing there with a beautiful robe over his arm, decorated gloriously with wampum. And he walked over to little burnt all over, and he said, little burnt all over, you have suffered so many sorrows with patience and fortitude. Those days are now over. You shall wear this cloak, and you shall be known as the Queen of the Night. And from this day forward, as people look up into the night sky and they see the beautiful stars, they will be reminded of the wampum on your cloak. And they will understand that the only way to get to glory and honor as you have is by going through the valley of sorrows and passing through with patience and fortitude. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the story.